April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. We learn of one Latina's personal story of hope in the foster care system and how Casa Volunteers are giving more children the opportunity to thrive in a safe and loving home. It's all here on the next Latino Motion. Join us.
Choose to get lost in the woods to gain experience in forest management.
Choose to travel through time to understand the past.
Choose to soar to pursue a career in dance.
Stockton University offers 50 high-quality academic programs, small class sizes, and affordable tuition. Choose to match your interests and talents at one of New Jersey's nationally ranked universities.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation, and Stockton University. This edition of Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is brought to you by the HD Studios at the campus of Stockton University. Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, a member of Geisinger, Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world, and South Jersey Gas. Welcome to Latino Motion, a weekly interview show highlighting issues impacting New Jersey's Latino community while advancing understanding of Latino cultural heritage and contributions to our society. And here is your host, Bert Lopez.
Buenos dias and welcome to Latino Motion. There are currently about 500,000 children in the foster care system in the United States, with 13,000 in New Jersey alone. Children enter the foster care system due to abuse, neglect, and abandonment. This is all too real for my next guest, Sarai Huertas, who is on a mission to bring awareness to the plight of children in the foster care system. Sarai, thank you for joining us here on Latino Motion.
Thank you, Bert, for having me here. It's my honor and pleasure. Thank you.
So tell me why foster care system is so personal to you.
Well, it's very personal because I went through the foster care system myself. I came from a very dysfunctional home. There was a lot of physical abuse, a lot of emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. And DCP&P stepped in and through that, went through the foster care system. And
so how old were you when you entered the foster care?
Yes, I was 13 years old.
So I know that you had come in from Puerto Rico here before you got help, if you will.
Yes.
Why did it take so long?
Well, in Puerto Rico, while we were there, it's really amazing, actually. The more I think about it now, we were receiving the abuse, so to speak, and often I heard from my own family that what happens in our family stays in our family, even if it meant things, hurtful things happening to each other. So there was nothing really that we didn't reach out for help.
Yeah, sometimes there are those cultural and belief barriers, if you will. Tell me how you got help.
Sure. Well, I came to America in 1993, and the school system actually stepped in and they call DIFES or DCP&P, and through that, that's how I came into the foster care system. And I can say that the foster care system, it was actually, I can put it like an umbrella where it was the protection for me.
Yeah, tell me, and we'll talk about your foster care parents in a moment, but through that experience, was there anything that kept you going, that inspired you, or that you looked up to as you went through this transition?
Absolutely. While going through this transition, the one thing that kept me has been and will always be my faith. I'm a strong believer in my faith in God, and even though I went through all that, I kept hanging on to what I read in the Bible. I knew that He was going to get me through. Which is
pretty impressive of age 13 that you had that faith to carry you through. And certainly we want to talk about your foster care parents because they played a big role in your life. We want to talk about that in just a moment. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion. Welcome back to Latino Motion. We're once again talking about the inspirational story of Sarai Huertas, who lived through the foster care system, and she's here to talk more about that story. Let's talk about your foster care parents. You were placed in foster care at the age of 13. Tell me a little bit about the experience with these foster care parents.
Certainly. Well, I knew my foster care mom through my church that I was attending with my birth father. And actually, while I was in my father's home, every weekend she used to bring us in to her home to kind of give us a normal life. We lived in the projects, so she will bring us every time and gave us some time away from the projects and everything. But yes, so I knew her through there, and she said yes to bring us into her home. And actually, while she said yes to us, she was going through her own divorce. And she had other children that she was assisting. So it wasn't an easy situation for her to take while she was going through all that, yet she did it.
I know that being involved in the church was also a big part of this because your foster care parent was also involved in the church. How did that help?
Oh, tremendously. I mean, she also has the same faith base like I do. So as she was going through her hard times, and she always wanted children and never could have children. So it was actually an answer to prayer to her to have me come into her life. And it was actually an answer to prayer for me to have someone be there for me and love me and believe in me and invest into my life. And that's what she did for me.
So going to this transition, obviously this didn't happen overnight.
No.
It took a lot of effort in both
correct.
parts, give and take. Tell me, what advice do you give other children who may be going through this process?
Well, I will give all the children, I just want to instill hope in them. First and foremost, I will want to let them know to not give up so quick with the foster parent that they're with, but to try. You know, when I was with my foster mom, I just thank God that she said yes to me, and I tried my best to make it easy for her. You know, I'm in someone else's home, so let me abide by the rules, and let me do my best to be kind, to be a good kid. You know, so that way it wasn't complicated.
Will you also have the fear of having to return back to your previous life, if you will?
Absolutely, Bert. Yes, that was my fear all along. I thought, my goodness, I love this foster mom. I don't want to lose her, and I don't want her to give me up. So let me do whatever it takes, my behavior in school, whatever it takes for me to keep this home, to keep this stability, I'm going to do that.
And we want to talk, we'll bring you back on the show because we want to talk and bring Casa in to talk about their services in this, along these lines. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. Nearly 700,000 children experience abuse or neglect each year. Instead of playing and making happy family memories, they're attending court hearings and adjusting to new foster homes and transitioning to new schools. Casa is providing support to give more children the opportunity to thrive in a safe and loving home. With me is Karen DeRosa. She is the Director of Community Development for Casa. Karen, welcome once again here to Latino Motion.
Thanks for having me, Bert.
What does Casa stand for?
CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and we are part of a national organization that recruits and trains community volunteers to be court advocates for children that live in foster care.
So all of your clientele, all the kids that you oversee are all part of the foster care system?
That's right. They've already been removed from their homes at the time that we get involved with their case.
So what is the role of those Casa volunteers? Obviously, they're advocating for the children. But what's that primary role?
We work hand in hand with the Child Welfare Department, with all the lawyers, with everybody that's involved with that child's case. But our main function and the main role of the Casa Volunteer is to be the eyes and ears of the family court judge. They meet with the children, develop relationships, and actually meet with everybody that's involved in that child's case. And then with that information, they write detailed reports to the family court judge at every hearing, and then they make recommendations for the overall well-being of each child.
So if you have a case like Sarah Eve in the previous segment,
Right.
she's in the foster care, there's another party that's looking over to see how that relationship is going,
Right.
making sure that it's in the best interest of the children to remain in that foster care setting?
Absolutely. In everything, in Sarah E's case, they would have been able to recommend services for her. If she was feeling anxiety, they could have recommended services that were provided to her that she can maybe overcome those through counseling. And there's a lot of things. We recommend everything from they need a prom dress to go to the prom,
Right.
and then all the way up to they need anger management classes, and everything in between. Our volunteers recommend those services for the kids.
Does it happen often that you have to remove a child from a foster care setting and place them in another? How often does that happen?
It does happen. On average, our kids are in care anywhere between 18 to 24 months. And we like them to stay in once they get into a foster home, and it's supposed to be a temporary situation, and we like them to stay in that one home. But there does come a time where maybe that just doesn't mesh, it's not the best placement for the child, and we would recommend possibly for them to go into another care. But that's really not the normal. We like them to stay where they are as long as they're doing well.
Now, I know, like in the case of Sarai that we highlighted earlier, she was adopted by the foster care parent. What role does CASA play in those adoption proceedings?
Well, we'll make a recommendation. There's a long process because birth parents have rights, and their rights are not terminated. That is the very last stop in the family court system. We want parents to have the opportunity to go through their own services and get their own, get everything in order for themselves. And we want them to be able to take their children back. And on average, in our circumstances, about 42 to 48% of our kids do go home because the parents get the services that they need. So we want that to happen, and we want them to come out of that foster care system.
So I want to talk about the volunteer part of this program. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion. Welcome back to Latino Motion. We continue our discussion with Karen DeRosa about the important work of the Casa Volunteers. And Karen, I know that you rely heavily on volunteers. I want to talk about what qualifications do you seek for those volunteers?
We always tell people that you don't have to have any special skills, only the desire to help a child in need. That's the only skill that you need.
Now, you do provide training, however.
Yes, we do. We have training. It's a 30-hour training, and we do that about 5 times a year. We actually have a training class coming up in the spring, if anyone is interested. And after that 30-hour training, you're assigned a child's case, and we work with you after that training and after you're assigned. So you always have either an experienced advocate with you or a staff member with you to walk you through the whole process.
So what age group are your volunteers typically?
Typically, we're anywhere between 40 to 80, in that range.
So certainly, you have folks who have retired that are looking to help, who will participate in this great cause. And certainly, you're looking for more volunteers, but particularly bicultural, bilingual volunteers. Let's talk a little bit about what's required of the volunteers. We know we're going to advocate for the children, but what kind of time commitment is involved?
Once you go through the training, it's about 8 to 12 hours a month. And a lot of that is very flexible. When you're visiting the child, of course, you have to go by the schedule of the foster family and the child. But other than that, it's court cases, of course, are set times. But other than that, it's really a flexible schedule. A lot is telephone work. You're calling people, checking in with people, looking at files at the DCP&P office, visiting with the child, visiting with the parents. So it can be a very flexible volunteer volunteer opportunity after you go through the training.
Now, do you also require to make appearances in court in behalf of the child, or is there some of that involvement as well?
Yes, absolutely. About every 3 months, there's a court hearing when a child is in foster care. So not only would you be required to attend court, but make that court report that we talked about earlier, where you're writing down your observations and then making recommendations to the judge. And then that's presented at court, and then you attend court on the child's behalf as well.
So I'm assuming that this is very critical for that case, for the well-being of that child. And does it carry a lot of weight with the judge?
Oh, absolutely. Our judges are terrific. They read that CASA report is the first thing that's on the top of the pile when they're looking at that child's case. They read every word of it, and they take the recommendations of the Casa Volunteer very seriously. In fact, I think it's about 98% of the recommendations that our Casa Volunteers make are ordered by the courts and then carried out by child welfare.
And obviously, if you can volunteer to be an advocate and be a Casa Volunteers, there's other ways that you could help as well. I know you have a special event coming up.
We do, April 19th. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and so we have an event every year, and it's called Go Blue for CASA, blue being the color of Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month, and that's April 19th at the Linwood Country Club, and that's a dress-down event. It's a cocktail event. You can come in jeans. So if you want to learn a little bit more about CASA, but you don't quite know where you want to fit in, that's a great event to get started because you'll learn a little bit about us, and then you can make the decision if you want to get involved in it further.
And I'm looking forward to that event. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion. Welcome back to Latino Motion. We continue our discussion with Karen De Rosa, and joining us again is Sarai Juarez on the importance of advocating for children that are enrolled in the foster care system. And Karen, obviously we all play a big part to help kids who have gone to that foster care system. Tell me, what's the role for the rest of the people who are watching this show? What role can they play?
There's a lot of things that you can do to help children that live in foster care. The first thing is to be aware of the issues, and I think Sarai laid out all of the important things. Just become aware that there are children living in foster care right in your own community. In Atlantic and Cape May counties, there's over 1,000 kids that live in care. And I know when I wasn't involved with court-appointed special advocates, I didn't know that. You know, I knew that there was a foster care system, but I didn't know the plight of the children in care and the trauma that they go through. So it's just important to be educated about the issue. Second is become a mentor or a Casa volunteer. Get involved in these child's in their lives. Become the role model for them, like Sarai had for her foster mother was her role model. Become that role model for a child who's really in need and doesn't have any adult figures in their life that can play that role for them.
Let's talk about something very important, and that's the lack of having bicultural, bilingual volunteers. And I know, Sarai, that you were in place in a Spanish-speaking family. Your foster parent was not Latino or Latina, but it's important to have Latinos involved.
Yes.
And I understand that it's a high percentage, about 10% of the kids that you see are Latino, so we need more volunteers.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about why that's so important.
Well, when you have foster children that have a foster parent that has their same culture, it makes things a little bit easier. You know, every culture has its own things, but having the same culture, it kind of, I want to say, it lessens the anxiety. I mean, if you have someone, you know, I'm just thinking about myself. I was learning the language. When I came here, I knew no English. So I was trying to learn the language, trying to communicate with my American mom in English, and she didn't know Spanish. So that was difficult on top of everything else. But yes, it's very important I urge all, Hispanics out there, when you see this segment, to please, look into the Casa, what it has to offer, be a mentor, make a difference. And yes, we need you, and they can utilize their skills and their Spanish speaking skills to help our foster care children.
Karen, you have a big unmet need in terms of the volunteers. Tell me how big that need is.
Like I said, there's about 1,050 kids in care, and this year we'll be able to provide a Casa Volunteer to 675 of those children.
So about 300
plus. And to Sarah E's point, and to your point, about 10% to 12% of the children that live in care, so out of those 1,000 children, are Latino. And right now, we have 2 Latino volunteers. We just took a case the other day with 5 children.
Oh, you got 3 now.
There we go, we got 3. With 5 children, and the 5 children and the birth parents do not speak English. So for us, it's going to be very difficult to provide those services without a Spanish-speaking volunteer.
So if someone wants to volunteer, what should they do?
Go to our website, atlanticcapecasa.org, and all of the information will be right there.
And you mentioned Atlantic Cape. Obviously, that's the chapter that you work for, but there's a CASA organization in every county in New Jersey, correct?
Yes, that's right. And every county in New Jersey has a CASA program.
So obviously look it up, and you could certainly volunteer to be part of this great organization. Thank you, ladies, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for bringing us information about CASA.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us at home once again here on Latino Motion.
Choose to get your feet wet, to learn more about protecting our environment. Choose to read minds, to understand the human brain.
Choose to get your hands dirty, to create a masterpiece.
Stockton University offers 50 high-quality academic programs, small class sizes, and affordable tuition. Choose to match your interests and talents at one of New Jersey's nationally ranked universities.
Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, a member of Geisinger. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas.